Hi, I'm Caroline Mitchell, canine behaviourist at Good Doggy. So just the other day, a lovely client of mine asked me about a situation she had experienced with her dog. This situation is so common. This could be any one of many of my clients. I hear this story at least on a weekly basis. But just discussing this with her really just inspired me to make this video so I can pass this on to you. So basically, here's what she said. She said to me, Caroline, she goes, I don't understand. The other day, my dog was barking like mad out the window. In the end, I got him and I put him in the kitchen. Then once he'd been quiet for a few minutes, I gave him a treat. I let him back in again, and then he went straight back to it. What's that about? So what went wrong here? Okay, so the first thing was that the timing was wrong. In this example, the dog had been barking for a while. So whenever she went to go and get him, he had no way of connecting the barking that he'd been doing to the action of being taken into the kitchen. If she'd done it on the very first bark, he'd at least have known that the barking was connected to being taken to the kitchen, because he can connect them both together because they happened almost at the same time. At the other end as well, she told me that she'd left him in the kitchen for a few minutes after he'd gone quiet and then went into him. So again, when she went back into the kitchen to go and see him, he'd already been quiet for a while, so he wasn't able to connect going quiet with her giving him the treat or letting him out of the kitchen. So he didn't know what the problem was because the timing was off there to take him out. And he didn't know that being quiet was the solution to the problem because she didn't let him in again as soon as the quiet occurred. So a dog can't change his behaviour when he doesn't know what has gone wrong. What he did know in this situation was that he had been taken in the kitchen for an unknown reason. And then a while later, for another unknown reason, he had been allowed back into the living room. And he'd been given a treat for that. Now, we don't know what he was thinking at the time that she opened that door. He could have been thinking anything. Maybe he was thinking, I wonder if I can steal that chicken off the counter, or is there something going on in the back garden, or I wonder perhaps if I pee over here. She could have walked in at any time, and the time that he saw her again and got his treat, that's the kind of thing that he would have thought he was being rewarded for, but it had nothing to do with being quiet. So for him, he was sent out for an unknown reason, let back in for an unknown reason. So he didn't have a clue what he was punished for, and he doesn't know how to avoid it. And actually, when you think about it, if you don't know what went wrong and you don't know how to fix it, that's actually pretty scary. And that could actually really knock your confidence. Also in that scenario, the underlying issue of the barking was not looked at all. There was a reason for the barking, and that didn't change. So as soon as the situation went back to where it was, the barking started again. Presumably there was somebody in the street, and that's why he was barking at them. But whatever the reason was at the time, when he went back to the window, the reason hadn't changed. So therefore, the obvious answer was to do the barking. He didn't know it was wrong, so therefore he went straight back to it again. It's not just barking that this kind of thing applies to either. Timing is so important. So people also talk to me about lead pulling, and they'll tell me that their dog drags them down the street for a few steps before they then get fed up with them, and then they'll drag the dog back and shout no pulling at the dog. Then they'll make the dog sit for a few minutes before they give them a treat and start to walk off again. And as soon as they start to walk, the dog rushes back to the front of the lead and starts pulling again. Just like before, the timing is off. If that's the technique you want to use, then the walk should stop the second the lead tightens, because that's the only way the dog will know that the lead being tight was the problem. The lead prevented the walk from happening because it tightened. So when you do this often enough, they'll be able to figure out that the tightness of the lead is the problem. Then you don't need to pull them back. You don't need to do anything at all. You don't even need to tell them what to do. Just wait until they loosen the lead off themselves. They will do eventually for whatever reason. Maybe they see something in the distance. It will be a pure accident, but they will loosen that lead off. And as soon as the lead goes loose, then you move again. So loose lead means walk continues, and tight lead means walk stops. When you do that enough, the dog will learn what stops the walk, what starts the walk, so he knows what went wrong and he knows how to fix it himself. I don't understand the whole sit thing. I don't know what a dog is supposed to learn from being told to sit before they get their treat and go on for their walk. The goal of moving on your walk is to keep moving forward. We don't want our dog to constantly be sitting on the walk. So what you don't need to do is encourage your dog to do a very odd behaviour in the middle of this exercise. If you're trying to go forward, which is what the walk is for, then interrupting it constantly with lots of sits is actually not helpful at all. So in this case as well, it's very rewarding to move forward. So that's the ultimate goal. In fact, you might not even need to introduce a treat at this stage, because the moving forward part is the best part of what you do next. But if you want to include something like a clicker, then you can reward those calm steps in between as well. And it means you don't have to keep stopping. You don't have to stop even to give your dog a treat. You can do that every now and then, but the walk gets to continue. But certainly when you're trying to work on these things, don't introduce a step that's irrelevant to your end goal. Your end goal is to keep walking. So keep it very, very simple. Stop when the lead is tight, go when the lead is loose, and that is it. It's as simple as that. Jumping up, it's the same problem. People will let their dog jump up at them for a few minutes before they start to take any action. Begging for food is the same, pouring at you to play, mouthing at people. There is a huge list of behaviours that go on and on and on before we start to take action. But you're never going to be able to solve a bad habit unless you take action straight away. Respond immediately so that your dog knows what the problem was and know what the goal is so that you can fix it. Or at least your dog can learn how to fix it even better. A final note though, before I go on from here, with barking, I think it may come as a surprise to some people, but the truth is that dogs don't care about barking. They're not annoyed by barking. They're not annoyed by any of their own behaviour. Dogs do things because they work, because they achieve things for them. And even though perhaps sometimes we can't see what that might be, they are getting somewhere. Their behaviour is doing something good for them. So they're never going to be annoyed by it. If a dog is barking out the window and eventually a person leaves, then that's a really successful encounter. Whether it took 10 minutes or an hour, your dog doesn't care. He doesn't listen to barking, doesn't annoy him. Dogs don't get annoyed by jumping up at people. They don't get annoyed by pulling on the lead or begging for a treat. What they are motivated by is the end result. And the end result was something that they really, really want. If it wasn't, they wouldn't keep doing it. So they're not going to get ever fed up of a behaviour. They're not going to stop doing it out of their own annoyance or their own fed up of whatever it is they're doing. We do like to give our dogs the benefit of the doubt. People are very optimistic by nature. We hope the dog will eventually get bored of doing what they're doing, but in a lot of cases, the dogs can just do this all day. They have nothing better to do. It really doesn't bother them anywhere near as much as it does bother us. The time is to take some action on it. So what do? First of all, make a list of all the bad habits that you are trying to fix with your dog. Put them all on a list, no matter how small, how irritating, doesn't matter. Write them all down. And next to each item, make a note of the behaviour you want instead. From here on, now it's just all about timing. So we want to stop the behaviour working as soon as it happens. And then as soon as the dog offers us the behaviour that we want instead, then the interaction continues. So for jumping up, as soon as the dog jumps up, we need to turn away so that that behaviour is not rewarded. And as soon as they're back on the floor again, then we can turn around and we can try and pet them. Of course, what will happen is that they'll go straight back to jumping up. This is a habit they've been doing for a while, and it worked for them. So it's not going to change just after just trying once or twice. This is something that you need to commit to for a good period of time. Commit to this for weeks, not minutes. You'll need to repeat the same action. When you're consistent and your timing is good, your dog will start to realize that this is a rule, and they'll start to learn how to fix it. But if some days you're not in the mood for it, if you come in the house and your dog's jumping all over you and you don't care, then that will undo the work you've done before, because your dog will then start to go, well, actually, I thought that jumping up was a problem, but now actually it turns out that I can jump up. So I'm just going to keep doing that and forget about everything that went before that. That's just very confusing. So be very consistent. Know exactly what you don't want. Stop that from working. Find out what you do want and make that the behaviour that continues an interaction. With the barking and other things, there may well be some underlying issues as well, and you'll need to address those, because if you don't address the underlying issues, then all you'll do is you'll change a bad habit very temporarily, because eventually the need that drove it For example, the dog that was barking out the window was trying to scare people away from the house because he didn't like people coming near his house. That need will eventually overwhelm the dog again, and the behaviour will revert. And it won't be because you didn't put enough effort into it. It will just be because the underlying need just eventually became too important, and it took over, and it overrid everything that you had taught them. And this happens all the time in dog behaviour. If you don't look at the underlying cause, in that case, it was a fear protective behaviour, but maybe your dog's just really overexcited to see people. So until we teach the dog to be calm around people, then teaching them not to jump up will only be a sticking plaster, which eventually will just wear off and you'll be back to square one again. So find out exactly what it is that you don't want them to do, decide what you want them to do instead, and look at the reason for the behaviour in the first place. And if you can do all those three things, then it's really only time and patience that's stopping you from achieving the behaviour that you want. Good luck. Let me know in the comments what you're working on. Take care for now. Bye-bye.